So my name is Thomas Hurd. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Molecular Genetics at the University of Toronto. I did my undergraduate degree also at U of T in the Department of Biochemistry. And during my time as an undergraduate student, I sort of spent time in the lab and got really just interested in science. From there, I moved to the University of Cambridge to do my PhD at the mitochondrial biology unit. And then I did a postdoctoral fellowship at NYU in the Skirball Institute. And after which, I was fortunate enough to secure a position back at U of T in molecular genetics.
Could you share a current project or study you're excited about?
Yeah, so my lab is really interested in this sort of organelle that exists within our cells called the mitochondrion. It's the major metabolic organelle. It's why it's where our food is metabolized and where the oxygen we breathe ultimately goes to make energy in the form of ATP. And what's so fascinating about the organelle is it has its own genome, which is a small sort of genome that's inherited in a quite unusual fashion. And so one of the big questions my lab is interested in is trying to understand how that organelle is passed and inherited from mother to offspring. Ultimately, the mechanisms that exist to maintain the sort of fitness and integrity of the genes that are housed within it.
How do you envision your research impacting healthcare or medicine in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so our work is on the basic side. My lab is really interested in trying to understand how human bodies work. But of course, in doing so, there are lots of sort of medically relevant implications for the work. So I would say we're not so directed towards trying to cure disease, although the things that we find could have implications for the treatment of diseases. Particularly, mutations in mitochondrial DNA, this genome that we study, are a major cause of neurodegenerative disorders. And the mechanisms that we are sort of trying to understand, the ways in which the quality of those genes are maintained, could have important implications for the treatment of those mitochondrial disorders.
How do you involve undergraduate and graduate students in your research projects?
Yeah, so all the work in the lab is really done by graduate students. And so they're the ones driving the experiments. They're directly involved. Often, certainly when they become PhD students, often they become very independent and are really the sort of intellectual drivers of the work. So they're intimately involved. It's their work. Undergraduate students, typically we have a few undergraduate students in the lab, and they are, again, involved often in their own projects, but are overseen by me and, of course, the graduate students.
Outside of work, what are your hobbies or interests?
So I have two young children, and so they take up, I guess, it's not really a hobby, but they take up a fair bit of my time outside of work. But beyond that, I used to be a big swimmer, so I still swim occasionally, not as much as I'd like to. And I love plants, so I love gardening when possible. Yeah.
What's something surprising that people might not know about you?
Well, I mean, maybe one of the more surprising things is that I don't have a driver's license.
If you could have dinner with any person, past or present, who would it be and why?
Maybe if I could have dinner with one person. There's lots to choose from. I think maybe one of the people would be Peter Mitchell, who sort of is a critical pioneer of mitochondrial biology, who sort of discovered oxidative phosphorylation, really how the organelle makes ATP. And I would love to hear sort of the history of how that worked and how that kind of evolved. It's something that's so dear to my research and so interesting to me.
If you could switch careers for a day, what would you choose and why?
So if I could perhaps switch careers for the day, I think it might be interesting to be an architect, to see what that would be like. It could be fascinating.
Backpacking adventure or luxury resort vacation?
Backpacking adventure.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Pineapple on pizza? Yes or no?
Yes.
Dogs or cats?
Cats? Neither.
Fiction or non-fiction books?
Fiction.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Comedy or drama movies?
Comedy.
Great. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. We really appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, thanks.